Hey guys, it's time to skim the surface of another incredibly broad topic. Okay, this time it's pacing. Let's begin with the basics of pace here. First things first, what is pace? Essentially, pace is an illusion. It's a feeling of speed in a story or in its parts. I say it's an illusion of speed because it's not exactly quantifiable. Instead, it's a feeling which can be altered with many different kinds of tricks. When people critique pace, they often speak of good pace and bad pace, but these criticisms are pretty useless if you're trying to learn. Pace cannot be good or bad. Pace can be slow, pace can be fast, and pace can be fitting, and pace can be at odds with its own story. But because of the subjectivity of art, none of it is bad or good inherently. Good pace typically refers to a story that moves at a speed which the reader doesn't find overwhelming, confusing, or boring. Bad pace is a story that leaves readers behind to do its own thing, or it's too slow so that the reader starts skipping pages. But just because a reader gets a little bit bored or confused doesn't mean the pace is bad, because sometimes you want to bore or confuse a reader a little bit. If you ever get stuck on your pace, review what you're trying to accomplish. That can help guide you to the pace you're trying to achieve. If you don't know what you're trying to do, it's hard to know if you're doing it correctly. And now the ways in which pace can be controlled are incredibly broad. Like a lot of things in writing and art, there are many, many levels to it. There is an overall pace, scene pace, page pace, pace of your dialogue, pace of your panels. There's an element of pace to almost everything you put down. Thankfully, the basic principles of pace run through all these elements. Size, rhythm, detail, and engagement are these key elements that I'll focus on. I use them when I'm seeking to control pace. Each of these elements exists on a spectrum, and it can be applied to individual aspects of your comic. So the sentence pace, the scene pace, etc., etc. The first element is size. Large things require more engagement than smaller things, and thus slow the pace. Larger panels, paragraphs, bubbles, sentences, scenes, stories, if they take longer to engage with, they slow the pace. Lord of the Rings will physically take you longer to read than Charlotte's Web, and thus it feels longer. This is by far the least illusionary aspect, but it can't be disregarded. The second element is detail. Detail could easily fall under the umbrella of size. Often increasing detail increases size, but since it isn't always the case, I feel it deserves its own category. Detail is the addition of information. Images that are simple are absorbed quickly, while details require further thought. Third is rhythm, the interplay between size. Rhythm is basically where you have fun. Varying your size and detail creates something fluid which can read quickly. It flows. Repeating structures is tedious. Repeating structures is boring. Repeating structures slows the pace. Repeating structures draws focus. Rhythm is easiest to understand through writing sentences. Looking into varying my sentences in prose helped me a lot when I started looking at panel sizing. Poetry is also a great place to start if you're looking to get a comprehensive understanding of rhythm. But that's all another topic for another day. Classic line from me at this point. The final element when I look at controlling pace is engagement. Theoretically, size, detail, and rhythm are used to create engagement, but the fickle beast that is audience engagement will play into how pace is perceived. Unlikable characters destroy engagement for some readers. Slogging through these POVs can be an eternity for them. Meanwhile, characters and concepts others love have an opposite effect. It's basically like time flies when you're having fun, but it isn't impossible to alter these aspects when they aren't giving you the effect you want. Usually these issues of engagement boil down to misplaced importance, putting all your detail into one large boring basket. If your goal is to make a boring scene, character, or panel feel more engaging, you either need to make the element worth all this detail you're giving it. Maybe slowing the plot here would be better if the character was struggling with existential dread. Or you need to realize that this scene doesn't deserve to slow your plot. Maybe if you want an engaging story, you should cut that scene where your main character cuts 19 carrots one by one in excruciating detail. Engagement is in and of itself a huge topic. But basically, for the concept of pace, if you want engagement, quickness, make the pace reflect the story element's importance. Slow the pace for importance, speed through what isn't needed. In the end, you are the arbiter of what is important. And I guess that's why this is all so hard to explain. Thank you so much for watching. If you have more questions about pace, which I'm sure you do, feel free to ask them below. And if you want to support me, you can also do that below in the description thing, because I have things you can look at. I write stories. And I also like comments, so, throw me a little love in any way you can. And maybe I'll continue making videos. I don't know. This isn't a hostage associate situation. Okay, bye.